Thank you, Bradford. My name's Kirk, and I'm an alcoholic. And it is truly an honor, and I'm blessed to be here tonight, sober. Been in this building drunk quite a few times. Some of you have seen me that way. The housekeeping. My sobriety date is December 27th of 2005, and that really isn't that long ago, and it's not that impressive, but it impresses the crap out of me. And also the people that are closest to me. A couple caveats. Nori was kind enough to speak at our home group a couple weeks ago, and he talked about what a tough guy he is, and you know how he's not emotional and doesn't cry that frequently. I'm that same tough guy. So you know, I promise I won't get bawling uncontrollably up here, but I am prone to emotional outbreaks. Also, I drank alcoholically for over 3 decades and have been in recovery for less than 1. So I never try to stay drunk too long, but my gosh, my whole life, it just revolved around drinking, and then I was introduced to AA, and then I was avoiding AA. Most of my, the last 20 years of my drinking was avoiding AA. So I will try and get sober more quickly tonight. My home group is the Keeping It Sober group. We meet over in Aberdeen, Tuesday night at 8 o'clock and Saturday night at 8 o'clock. And here comes my sponsor right on time. And it is as Bradford was saying, it is nice to see, I recognize almost all the faces out there. I've known a lot of you for a long time, and some of you I don't know that well, but I've seen you come into the rooms, and for me right now, that's where I am in my recovery, seeing the new man walk in and woman, and kind of start this thing one day at a time, and before you know it, they're picking up a medallion, and that's what it's all about. So, there's really no reason that I should have been an alcoholic. I came from a very loving family. I was born in the Midwest to 2, wonderful parents. Both my mother and father were college educated. I have 4 brothers. It makes 5 of us. I'm the middle child, and some psychologists say the middle child is a problem child, and I guess I did nothing to dispel that theory. One of my brothers is an alcoholic, so 2 out of 5 of us, 40%, have the disease. So, I think it's genetic, because it certainly wasn't my upbringing that made me alcoholic. My parents, they never hit me. They were very strict, but they always wanted the best for us. They instilled such good values for us, and I never realized it at the time, but growing up, life was really good. I was born a malcontent, so I never had everything I wanted, but I know now that I had everything I needed, and my father always said, if you have everything you need. If you want something else, you go out and you earn that money, and so that was kind of my. Well, I'll get into that later. So they sent us to private schools, and I was born Roman Catholic, so I went to a parochial Catholic school, and I was an altar boy. Can you believe that? this guy, an altar boy, and I served Mass twice a week, and I had to go to church 3 times a week, and I was thoroughly convinced that church was a legalized form of torture for kids, because I hated it. I really hated it, but I had no recourse. And, even though I grew up in this loving environment from the very get-go, as long as I can remember, for whatever reason, I always felt apart from and less than. And I can't explain that. I was just born that way. There were times I didn't feel worthy of the love that was being bestowed upon me, and for whatever reason, it's like, what am I doing in this house? But anyway, and I always had a lot of guidance and authority figures, and meaning there was always someone telling me what to do. I had 2 older brothers. They always told me what to do. Of course, my parents told me what to do. The nuns at school always, were ragging on me to do something other than what I was doing. And, the word I use is recalcitrant, and that means stubbornly opposed to authority and guidance. And that was me from the get-go. And, even though I was in this idyllic little environment, it wasn't the Cleaver family or anything like that, but it was a nice place to grow up. I couldn't wait for the day to be out on my own and do what I wanted to do, and I knew that day would come. But, so my parents, they both drank and they entertained a lot, and when I was growing up, and this was a long time ago, it was, drinking was socially acceptable back then. There weren't, a lot of negative connotations with people going out and having a cocktail. And my parents, since they entertained a lot at home, it was cute for the kids, meaning me, to go into the kitchen and grab a beer or a glass of wine for the guests. And I'd always, steal a little sip here and there, and never felt the effect of alcohol until one night my father asked me to go into the kitchen and grab him a beer, and I said, okay, if I can have one. And of course my mom wasn't home. That's the only reason I said that. And he said, yeah, okay, but don't tell your mom. And so I went and got his, and I went in the kitchen, and I opened this little, I can still remember it, it's a little can of hams, and it looked like a little keg of beer, and vile stuff. But anyway, I cracked that thing and I down it, and up until that point, here I am, a little kid, and I am still pretty little because this is the evening I got my pajamas on, and there's feet in the bottom of my pajamas, so I wasn't real old, I do not wear pajama bottoms that have the feet attached anymore, so, and I downed that thing, and as a little kid, for whatever reason, I had that restless dis-ease. Something wasn't just right on the inside with me. But I downed that beer, and honest to God, from my toes up to the top of my head, everything in my world was wonderful. I went to bed that night, and I logged that feeling, the effect of alcohol. And there's no certainties when you're that age, but I was certain that I would, experience that effect again. And it wasn't too much longer. So I go from this little 20-kid classroom to a public high school, and now there's 1,000 freshmen. And I'm this Lilliputian in the land of Gullivers, and I am really out of my comfort zone. And as long as I can remember, I've always wanted to be popular and a people pleaser, and I wanted to somehow fit in this big new world. And I was athletically inclined, and because I wasn't very big, I played golf and tennis. By the time I got to high school, I got tired of the 6'4" pitchers 60 feet away from me throwing these rockets down right at me. So I said, I'm out of here. So I'm a golfer, and I make the varsity team, and so now I'm on the varsity club, and I am, because I have almost this status at the school that I am someone, and all these athletes like to drink, and from the very get-go, I was a terrible drinker. I had 3 or 4 beers, and I'm throwing up, and making a fool of myself, and I was a blackout drinker from the get-go. I don't remember a lot of what happened at night, and that seemed to be every Friday night we do that. Every Saturday morning in the summer, I'd be mowing lawns for this money for all the material things that my parents wouldn't provide for me. And my God, the fumes from the lawnmower, I'm in the bushes throwing up, and it's hot out, And I get thinking, boy, it's Saturday. We get to do this again tonight. And I couldn't wait to get out and get drunk again Saturday night. And, again, sick all Sunday. And that went on all through high school. And there were really never any negative consequences or nothing bad ever happened. In the beginning, alcohol, what it did for me, it empowered me. It gave me the courage to do the things that I could never summon up by myself. I could now talk to girls under the influence, and I never really got brave enough to ask them to dance at the dances or anything like that, but it had even alcohol had its limitations. My grades were average my first 2 years in high school, and all of a sudden I become smarter. I got straight A's my junior and senior year, and I hear so many stories where, once a person starts drinking, they not only quit going to class, but, they drop out of high school or whatever. I became, a wonder student, and I am just, this is it. Alcohol is it for me. This is my solution, and it stayed that way. It empowered me all through high school, and I go to college, and one of the biggest questions that haunted me my entire adolescent 8 years, was, Kirk, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I'm like, oh, geez, that's got two connotations. A, I have to grow up. B, I have to decide on, some career. And I'm like, I don't know. I guess I'll get back to you when I grow up. And I still don't know what I want to be. But, so it's time to go to college because that's what we were supposed to do. And I didn't want to disappoint my parents, and I really had nothing else to do. So I go to school, and I get in this curriculum that is golf related, and I'm with a bunch of people, with similar interests, and college for me was a riot. It really was, and later on in my drinking years, alcohol just absolutely kicked my butt. But early on, there were some really good times, and I won't relive the good times all that much, but, we were road tripping every weekend. We were on the golf course drinking. We weren't supposed to do that, but we did. I went on these internships through school. I went to Miami, I went to Nashville, I went to Washington, D.C. I'm out there, I am full of life. I am ready to take on the world, and again, alcohol really helps me do that. And I didn't stay, I went to class and got decent grades in college, and because, I felt obligated to my parents. They were footing the bill for the most part. So, I still had some sense of responsibility. I was a screw-up and an idiot, and I still am. But, I could maintain and hold it together. I could manage well. And, so I get out of college, and I am ready to take on the world, and I'm working at a nice place in Wisconsin. And I worked at this place for 3 summers. And the first 2 summers, I am gung-ho, and again, just every day is a new adventure, it seems. And the third year, I don't know what happened. Someone planted a seed in my mind of saying, like, what are you doing back here? When are you going to have your own job and, start making a whole bunch of money? And it got me thinking, he's right. Here I am. I'm making my boss look really good. He's making a lot of money. I'm not. I'm doing all the work. He's up in the bar at having a martini with his lunch. Something's wrong with this picture. And, I all of a sudden go from, very encouraged with life to being very disillusioned and a little irritable and quite discontent. And the way this alcoholic deals with that is to drink more, And I had, my rules or my guidelines. I never drank before 5 o'clock. I never drank on the job. And I always tried to take 1 day a week off from drinking, but that rule got thrown out the window early because what day do you not drink? And so, that one went out the window. But the 5 o'clock at work, I held on to that pretty religiously until one day I said, no, screw this. A couple cocktails at lunch won't hurt anything. And once I made that decision that the only way I could cope with my miserable existence at that time was to drink more. And by the end of that summer, I was really, really unhappy. And I got my first DUI that summer. And not that that's any big deal. If you drink like me daily and drive an automobile, odds are you're going to get a DUI eventually. And I have 4, but so I feel fortunate that I only had that many. I should have had a lot more than that. But so I go from this, in my mind, now I'm this really bad person. I'm just really a loser, and I'm really down on myself. And so, again, the way to cope with that is not only to drink more, but to move. And this started for me a series of geographical cures that went on for 20 years. I mean, my poor mom, her address book, every 6 months there's a new entry for Kirk. All my other brothers have one entry. I've got like 20 pages in her little address book. And, she didn't know where I was half the time, even trying to keep up with me. God bless her. So I, somehow or another, I end up down here. It's a long story, but I end up down here, and this is really telltale of where my alcohol was at that time. This is 1983. I was offered 2 jobs. One was at a really, really nice facility. It was a no-brainer. I should have taken that job. But, if I worked there was definitely going to be no drinking on the job. And I was probably expected not to, drink that much out in public at all. The other job was working for my buddy, who's kind of like me. He had his golf shop had a refrigerator that was just full of beer, and you could drink all day if you wanted, And I went and worked for my buddy, and alcohol was the sole criteria for me making that decision. I knew that there's no way that I could maintain it, even though the job was much better. There's no way I could do that other job without drinking. This is where alcohol had taken me, and. So I spent way too much time working for this guy, and the bottom line is I drank all day, every day. I worked a lot of hours, and I was the most unhappy, miserable person on the planet. And, I couldn't, thank God my friend, he finally said, look, you're not doing me any favor or yourself. You got to get out of here. And so I said, you're right. And so I started doing the north-south thing. And, somehow or another, a couple of years later, I end up in Florida. And now my drinking is to the point, and I'm working at Disney World, and it is really, really hard for an alcoholic of my nature to work at Disney World, drunk, and get away with it. Everyone else is in costume, and here I am. I'm under the influence every day that I'm at work, and it was a lot of pressure trying to put on that sober act. I thought I was doing okay, but you can tell if a guy like me is drunk. It's pretty simple. So, the day came where, I called into work and I said, I'm sorry, I can't come in today, and that's kind of it. And they said, what do you mean that's kind of it? I said, well, I quit. And this is, again, alcohol, working was interfering with the way I wanted to drink. So I just was hanging out at my buddy's house, and the only thing was he wanted me to still pay rent, and so I didn't know how I was going to pull this one off. Well, Mom and Dad, they love me to death, and they, almost did love me to death. They were always my safety net. And so I call home, say I need money for rent, and, excuse me. So the envelope comes in the mail, and I go, yes. And, but it's not money in the envelope. it's a one-way plane ticket home. And I'm thinking, well, this can't be good. But, I had no other recourse. By that time, I was physically starting to be sick. I had to go to the hospital a couple times, gastrointestinal hemorrhaging or something they called it. And, they always ask me, how much do you drink? And I'm like, what's that got to do with it? I'm bleeding from my stomach. Anyway, so, I have no choice. I get on the plane, and there's Mom and Dad at the airport to meet me, and God bless them. The look on my dad's face is just disgust, and the look on my mom's face is just fear. I guess I had drank myself physically into a state where I hadn't seen him for a while. It was very difficult for this alcoholic to get back to Michigan because I was too busy doing other things. Actually, I was embarrassed to go back home because, if I would have gone home, that would have been a lot of pressure, and they would have seen me drunk there. And I didn't want them to see it, although they already knew. So their plan for me was a 28-day treatment facility. And again, I've got no recourse. I say, okay, I'll go. And up until that point, I knew nothing, absolutely positively nothing about Alcoholics Anonymous. I didn't want to know anything about it. There were several nights at my buddy's house down in Orlando where I'm watching TV all night and trying to fall asleep, but couldn't. And these commercials would come on for treatment centers, and I'd have to change the channel immediately because I knew there was probably something to what they were trying to sell on these ads. And so I go into this treatment facility, and I know nothing about recovery. And what I soon found out was that alcoholism is a disease, and I have it. And, I got this book there. That was 1988. This is my $12,000 big book. And, but I still have it. I must have moved 30 times between 1988 and now. And this is probably one of two things I still possess. The other is a 24-hour-a-day book. But anyway, so I got this book, and I'm reading it, and I started thinking, if this Bill dude's an alcoholic, I am, and if this doctor says these characteristics represent an alcoholic, I'm an alcoholic, and then the next chapter is there's a solution, and I said, well, I'll get to that later, because not only did I realize I was an alcoholic, and this epitomizes my attitude towards my recovery at that time. My counselor asked me the first week I was there, 2 questions. He goes, do you think you have a problem with alcohol? And I said, yes, I do. And he says, well, are you willing to do something about it? And my response was, what do you have in mind? Because I was willing to do something about it up to the extent where, in the back of my mind, I knew there was a day that I was going to drink again, pure and simple, So I did what they asked, So from that experience, what I know now is I consider myself a half-stepper from that point until I surrendered, because I was willing to admit that I was powerless over alcohol, but I could still manage my own life, and the rest of that stuff, well, we deal with that stuff later, the other 11 steps. So, I get out of that place, and I spend the summer at my parents', and what a blessing that was. All I had to do, and they give you the sheet, 90 meetings in 90 days. I think I went to 87 out of the 90, not bad. They said, get a sponsor, and I'm looking at, get a sponsor. I'm like, how much is this going to cost? Like, I have to get a financial backer to get sober? This is how much I know about recovery. And it's, no. You get someone who's done this before that can help you, get better. And my thought was, God, I'm not drinking. I'm already better. And I was, physically I felt better. On the outside, things were better. The inside, I didn't do anything to address all that crap that's on the inside. But, because everything else on the outside world was manageable, I could deal with that feeling of dis-ease that was still down there. And, so at the end of that summer, my dad said, "Are you ready to go back to work?" I said, "Yes, I am." And, I went from there to Myrtle Beach, and I tried to go to one meeting when I was there. And I did go to one meeting when I was there. I didn't have a car because of I lost my license somehow or another. There was a second DUI in there that precluded me from driving privileges. And so the meeting closest to where I was living was an all-women's meeting. And, I went the first night, and they said, "Well, we'll stay, but here's a schedule, and here's where all the other meetings are." That was the one and only meeting I went to, so there I am, out on my own. No meetings, no sponsor, no steps. I still have my big book. I hadn't looked at it, for weeks. And, I went over, well over a year without taking a drink, which, is pretty impressive for a guy of my nature. The way I started back, I was in Arizona. I got tired of Myrtle Beach. I had to move to Arizona because we're on the road again. Here we go. And I was out to dinner with this girl, and she orders a steak and a glass of wine. She goes, "Aren't you going to have a glass of wine?" And I said, "Well, yes, I am." And why not? And I left Arizona that week to come back to North Carolina. And this is so bizarre, but a lot of what I did was bizarre. I grabbed a few wine coolers for the road, because it's a long drive, and I'm going to get thirsty. And, so I'm going to, and I don't like wine coolers, so I won't guzzle these, but by the time I got to New Mexico, the wine coolers weren't cutting it. So I got some beer, and by the time I get to Texas, I'm like, the beers make me go to the bathroom too much, but in Louisiana, I'm drinking vodka out of the bottle, on my way to North Carolina. And, the game is on, and it is on. Because, now I know that there is a solution that I'm avoiding. So this drinking thing, I still enjoy it immensely, and it's a necessity for me at that point in my life. But I know that there's something else that I could be doing. I just don't want to do it. And so, I stopped again for a little while. I was going to get married, and, I go to ask this girl's father, for his daughter's hand. He says, "Yes, you can marry my daughter if you stop drinking." So, okay, I'll do that. So I did stop drinking again. I didn't do anything in terms of what I was supposed to be doing recovery-wise. She decides she doesn't want to get married, so 2 months before we were supposed to. So if that's not a green light to start again, this alcoholic has his reason for drinking, and I'm on it with a vengeance, and again, I've got to move. I go to Rhode Island, and the next few years, I have a really good job, and I make it through a year there, and I don't know how, because there's an awful lot of pressure that went with this job, and the only way I can deal with pressure is to drink even more, and my drinking's out of control, but I'm holding it together because I show up for work every day, and by God's grace and the largesse, the people I'm working for, they don't fire me, and at the end of the year, this guy goes, "Kirk, we really want you to come back next year." That blew me away, but he said, "Next year you can't drink on the job." And I said, "Okay." And he said, "Okay, what?" And I said, "Well, I won't be back next year." Again, the decision was easy. There's no way I can do that job sober. So now I am self-employed, which in AA parlance means unemployable. I mean, the only way I can do anything, I give a few lessons here and there, just enough to support my drinking. I somehow did have my license back. I have a car, and my address is the license plate on the back of my car. I'm living out of my car now, which wasn't a bad gig. I'd go over to the club and shower, and whatever. I didn't think it was that bad, but talk about unmanageability and out of control. And this went on for a couple more years, and finally, some friends of mine intervened me up there and said, "Kirk, you're killing yourself. We can't watch this anymore." And these are 4 people sitting across the table from me who drank just like I did. But I didn't say anything. They said, "Just go back to AA, would you?" And I said, "Okay, I will." And I did. And I went back, and I didn't drink that time for 2.5 years. This is 98 to 2000. So happens I did have a pretty extensive surgery right at the beginning of that drinking cessation. And so my doctor gave me an unlimited supply of Percocet and Vicodin. So for 2 years I didn't drink, but that, those opiates took the edge off of life just enough for me to maintain where I didn't feel the urge or the necessity to drink. And so I thought I was doing something good there. In retrospect, I just traded alcohol for these opiates, but I wasn't addicted to them. I took them religiously for 2.5 years. But if the pill, if the pill bottle said, one a day every 6 hours, and it should last 30 days, the bottle lasted 30 days. So I maintained in that regard. But I'm so out of control. And finally, one of those friends died up there in Rhode Island, and I said, This is your sign, Kirk. You got it. I quit my job the next day. I moved down here, and why? Because I was ready to drink again, And I get an apartment, and it's right over the corner in Maine, Massachusetts. And I lived there for 4 years, and Steve's laughing because he had to come and fix my refrigerator a couple times, and I don't remember him doing it. And that refrigerator, that was a classic alcoholic refrigerator. Both crispers were full of beer, and the freezer had bottles of vodka in it, and there was nothing in between, really. There might have been a bottle of ketchup or something in there, but it was meant for other things. And I knew this place was here. I came in here, and my friends, and now I'm really on a tear, and what does the big book say? We're we're mildly intoxicated, but more so insanely drunk. I was insanely drunk every day, and by this time, I had long gone past that empowerment stage and that coping stage. Alcohol, for me, in the end, offered me oblivion, and that's what it did. The only way I could cope, kind of a low period in my life, the only way I could cope with that miserable existence was to black out and pass out, and I did that every day. And that's where I'd gotten. And a couple times I would come over to this meeting, and God bless Tom Ivis. The meetings were downstairs at that time, and I come in, and I sit down, and I am shaken because I haven't had a drink in like 2 hours, which is a modern day record for me at that time. And Tom is up there saying, yes, we not only have these meetings here, but we go into the treatment facilities, and we go into the hospital, the detox center, and we go into jails. And I'm thinking to myself, those are the exact places I want to avoid. I got to get out of here. So I ran out that back door and across the lot to my apartment, and I didn't come back here for a while. You scared me. Man, I was going to end up in detox or in jail, And, so it took me until 2005, and, a couple more DUIs in there somewhere or another. Our stories, explain in a general way what it was like, what happened. For me, what happened is still an enigma. I have no idea what happened, how I surrendered. I was on the verge of being homeless, living in Pinehurst. It was Christmas, 2005, and I've got nothing but the clothes on my back. And on the 26th, this is the last couch that I have to sleep on. I have to go out into I'm going to be homeless in Pinehurst. Pinehurst isn't a good place to be homeless. B, I don't do homeless well. So I have no phone, but I find myself on the phone that night, and my mom says, "Okay, here you go. You get one last chance. You can come home. Your brother will come pick you up. You can come home, and you know what you have to do. You have to stop drinking. You have to go to a meeting every day, and you have to do it differently this time. You have to do it, the right way." And I said okay, and I can't believe those words came out of my mouth. I think it was the fear that now I'm left to my own devices, and I'm finally getting the idea that I can't manage my own life. B, I was starting to vomit blood again, and I had been hospitalized for like 10 days, not much prior to that, and I was too tired to fight anymore and keep on going. So, I go home and I am sick, and I couldn't go to a meeting for about a week, and I finally go, and it's a Sunday night, and I think it's like New Year's Eve, and I pick up a white chip, and something inside of me everything was like, all right, this is it. This is your new life. You got two choices. You can fight it, struggle it, or accept this. And I don't know. Those aren't words that normally come out of my mouth. Accept, because I'm not the accepting type. But I accepted my fate. The idea that things had to change, something had to give, and. I met this man met me actually, and I was going to meetings, and I had no idea how to get sober or stay sober. There was this one guy, Big Mike, and Big Mike, every meeting, he'd get out his big book, he'd turn to page 25, and he'd read that paragraph that says something to the effect, the certainty. The fact is that our Creator has entered our life in a way that is truly remarkable and miraculous. And I'm like, what is this guy talking about? I don't know anything about any Creator or entering my life. And he read it every day. And finally, I went home and I opened this book and I read page 25. And I read the paragraph he read, but it was the next one that struck me. And it said, I was placed beyond human aid, and I truly believe that I was. Left to my own devices, I knew I was a goner. And the next sentence says we had two choices, keep on going, trying to blot out our miserable existence the way we were, or accept spiritual help, And when I read that, I'm thinking, I'm screwed, because I cannot go back blotting out my miserable existence, and I know nothing about spirituality and how to get spiritual help. The next day, my sponsor approaches me and says, you need help. Let's have breakfast. And we go to breakfast, and this guy, Ron D., what a great man. I'm nibbling on a piece of toast, and he's devouring this big breakfast, and I'm like, I'm ready to throw up. But anyway, he looks at me and he finally says, do you pray? And I'm like, do I pray? I don't say anything, but the look on my face, he said, I'll take that as a no. He said, you better start. And I'm like, oh, okay. And here I am. I was this altar boy. I knew the prayers in Latin and in English. I didn't know what any of the words actually meant, but I knew all these prayers. And I just looked at him. I said, Ron, I don't know how to pray or what to pray for. He said, did you have a desire to drink today? And I said, no, I didn't. He goes, that's a gift. He goes, you go home tonight, get on your knees and say, thank you for that gift. When you get up in the morning, you ask God to do that again tomorrow. And I've been doing that every day since, because it worked. And, my only explanation for why the desire to drink was removed, that the mental obsession, physical compulsion kind of left on its own, but the mental obsession was removed, and for the first time in my life, it is because I asked God to remove it. So for me, this is where I had to go. And you know, I'm looking, I was always, the second step I took umbrage with because it talked about sanity, and so implying that I'm insane. And, you know, in looking back at my life and when doing my fourth step, yeah, I'm crazy. I'm not insane. I am just whacked. You know, but I didn't like the way they worded it. You know, so but once I got past the idea that, you know, who cares about, yeah, you're nuts, so what? You know, a power greater than yourself can restore us to sanity. Okay, if this is the solution, I'm going with it, because I became as willing as only the dying could be. You know, pure and simple. I never wanted to stop drinking. When I entered that treatment facility, I did not want to stop drinking. When my buddies intervened me, I did not want to stop. It was always someone else's idea. When my mom called me that Christmas almost 10 years ago, you know, I didn't want to stop. I knew I had to at the end. You know, and so, you know, God gave me a break right from the get-go. I didn't have the obsession to drink, but I had no earthly idea how to get sober. So he put this man in my life. And you know, immediately we're at the fourth step, and I said, well, I'm looking at the book, and I said, I don't get this. And he goes, well, you just, you know, just so happens next weekend is a fourth-step workshop. And, you know, what I got there was this template, and it came right out of the big book. You know, you list resentments, fears, and sex and harms and that. And, you know, you start with the resentments, and, you know, the way it was described in this template, it was like, okay, you write the ones you know are most foremost in your mind, so the biggest ones, and there was one resentment that really bothered me. So I wrote it down, and it also said, you know, go off on the guy, you know, expound, you know, write why you're mad at him and all this. And I'm writing, and this SOB did this, and, you know, he really, you know, irritated me, and the only words I can use to describe are not PG rated, so I better not go there. And, you know, so I do this, and then I go across, and I'm doing the other columns, is it real or imagined, and then there's this column E, and it goes, column E dealt with now. What was your part in all of this? And I'm like, my part? You know, no, go read that. You know, look at what this guy did to me. And then finally, this light came on, like, you know, if it happened to me, I was part of it, you know. And when I look back, the whole resentment was over a girl and whatever, not going into detail. I did play a part in it, and I realized that what I had done, I was selfish in my actions. And, you know, almost the whole idea of recovery made sense to me at that point. This was my spiritual awakening for me. And I'm like, oh, God. And I go to write the next resentment, and I go, this isn't going to be any fun, because I know that column E is still over there, and I'm going to have to look at my part in it. You know, so come to find out, thank God I didn't have that many resentments. What I did find out, I was loaded with fear. Fear ran, you know, from a very early age, fear, you know, ruled my life, and the way I dealt with fear was to drink, and now I can't drink. So, you know, all the little adages, you know, fear is lack of faith and all that, you know, and it's true for me. My fifth step I took down here. I moved from Michigan back down here because I had to go back to work. And I got the sponsor, and I chose my sponsor, and my current sponsor, Chuck, and I had the same sponsor at the time. And this guy was, I had known of John and knew that his past wasn't so savory, and I knew I'd have to be sharing my fifth step with John. And I knew that what I did wasn't nearly as bad as what he did, so he wouldn't think I'm that bad of a guy when I went to share my fifth step. This is how this alcoholic thinks, you know. But in taking that fifth step, you know, I did it to the best of my ability, and I couldn't wait. He said, we'll do it in 2 weeks. I said, John, come on, I got to dump this stuff. I couldn't wait to do it because I finally realized that there was a lot of stuff, all that restless, irritable, discontent, all the fear, the terror, the bewilderment, all that negative crap inside of me was predicated on all this negative stuff that happened in my life, and I had to dump it. I was ready to name it, claim it, dump it, and move on. And he said, okay, we'll do it. And we do it on the golf course. We got to play the front nine first. I'm like, okay, is this dude ever going to get around to this? And what he did, he shared one thing from his fifth step with me, and I'm like, wow, I'm not so sure I would have shared that with anyone, but it broke the ice, and I'm like, oh my God, and I'm worried about what I'm going to tell this guy, and it all just comes gushing out, and this, the biggest, feeling of relief. I was just. For me, the fifth step was it for me, where I really was ready to go. He said, you never have to share that stuff with anyone ever again unless it'll help someone else recover. And I have shared a lot of my that original fifth step with guys that I've worked with. 6 and 7, I'm defective, and just because I ask God to have them removed doesn't mean they're gone. But I'm aware of that now. My amends, I moved around so much, and I was a blackout drinker. My list is really extensive, and I've taken care of the ones that really, really weighed heavily on my head and my heart to the best of my ability, and my list is still really long. To make direct amends for me, I've got to go from Arizona to Rhode Island to Miami to Milwaukee. I've got a lot of traveling to do, but I'm sober now. I can do that. Instead of running from everything that I was running from, now I can go to all these different places. And life is so different now. I mean, life has taken on new meaning. All that. Page 87 or 89 when they talk about these are the things you will not want to miss. Seeing the newcomer come, to have a host of friends, to have an army of friends, and it's so weird. I have this army of friends, but I don't know most of their last names. And I see out and I say hi, and I'm with someone who's not in recovery, and they say, "Who's that?" And I say, "Well, that's Matthew." And Matthew, who is it? I don't know. Good friend, huh? Yeah. Well, he is, but I explain. I find that I don't have to explain myself to people who aren't in recovery. The people that I drank with, they don't want to hang out with me anymore because they're afraid they might catch what I have now. And they're not ready to stop. So, but they all of them have given me their blessing. Like, it's about time you stopped because you were really sick. And I'm like, yes, you're right, I was. It's. God, it's 8 o'clock already. Where does the time go? I am so grateful to be able to have the opportunity now. And, before, Bradford, when did you ask me to do this? 3 months ago? And my MO is always to start with the legal pad and start writing down. I am going to really, really wow you with all my expertise in recovery, and I've got all this good stuff and all these quotes written down. And I was at a meeting Tuesday night, and Peter H. shared that, he did that once, and it's the worst thing he's ever done. He said, he was trying to do it all from his head and not his heart. And after 10 minutes, he couldn't come up with a thing to say. So I threw that legal pad away and just, all I did today was I went to work, and work was a nightmare, but I left it. At 2 o'clock, it was gone. And one of the greatest things I've learned from this program is, wherever you are, be there. I wasn't really looking forward to this over the last 3 months because I'm obviously not a gifted orator, and I was drunk more than I was sober and all that. For me, my initial response is that this is an onerous task, and today I'm thinking, this is an opportunity. You get to go see these people. I apologize. I haven't been to this meeting in quite some time. It's all the way. I live all the way over in Pinehurst, and on Thursday night, it's a long drive. There's no good excuse for not being here. It's just, life, we all find our own way, and life moves on. But, today, I'm able to be here, and be excited about being here today. And I'm going to go to work tomorrow, and I already know that it's all screwed up. Right before I came up here, I had to listen to a message, and the message starts, well, you're not going to be happy with this, and it deals with work tomorrow. But that's tomorrow, and I can deal with it, So I'm out of time. Thank you so much. I do want to share that, that question that haunted me my entire life. What do you want to be when you grow up? I want to be more like y'all. Thank you so much. God bless you.